Hi everybody, we're going to look at another example of a quadratic when they ask us for how long something will take to hit the ground. Okay, so step number one is to use our equation. Again, if we look at what our graph looks like, this is our y-intercept. So we started at 6 feet, we're throwing a discus in the air, and then eventually it's going to hit the ground. When it hits the ground, we know that is where the height or the y value is equal to 0, which is why we're going to set the whole equation negative 16t squared plus 46t plus 6 equal to 0. Okay, this is step one. Step two is to figure out, am I using factoring or can I use square roots? Because I have three terms here, I am going to use factoring. Now remember, the first step of factoring is to see if you can factor out a greatest common factor. Between negative 16, 46, and 6, the biggest number I can divide out is 2. Now, be very, very careful here. Y'all notice how this is a negative right here? Anytime you have a negative, you also want to take out a negative. So I'm going to divide each of these guys by a negative 2. So again, when there is a negative here, you must take out a negative. It will make your life so much easier later on. So I'm going to put the negative 2 on the outside, and then I'm going to divide each one. Negative 16 divided by negative 2 leaves me with a positive 8 squared. This will leave me with a negative 23t and a negative 3, and we are still set equal to 0. This negative 2 is going to hang out on the outside, and we're just going to bring him down till the very end. So he's not doing anything right now. Looking at the inside, now I'm going to use my t-chart. If you can use your shortcut, do so, but because there is a number that is not equal to 1 in front, I have to use my grouping method. So again, make your t-chart. Multiply the first term times the last term. That would give you a negative 24. And then this negative 23 goes on the bottom. What times what gives me negative 24? Well, I know 1 times 24 will. And looking at the bottom, if I make the 24 negative, it will also add to a negative 23. So I can go ahead and stop right there. Now remember, in grouping, this is where we need to break up that middle term into the two numbers that we circled. So I'm going to bring down this negative 2. Again, he's just hanging out on the outside. I am going to bring down the 8t squared, break up the middle into plus 1t minus 24t, and then bring down the minus 3. It's called grouping, so we're going to group the first two together and group the second two together. Again, just take that negative 2. He's hanging out on the outside. And then between the first parenthesis, what can I divide out of? 8t squared plus 1t. The only thing they have in common is a t. And then when I divide each of these guys by t, the leftovers are 8t plus 1. Looking at the next one, because there is a negative here, I'm going to automatically take out a negative. Between 24 and negative 3, I can actually take out a negative 3. I'm putting the negative 3 on the outside. The insides are what's left over. 24 divided by 3 will give me an 8t. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 will give me a positive 1. Be careful of your negatives there. I am almost done. We have the same parentheses, so I know I did it right. Cross it off and write it once. And then my leftovers are going to go next. And then don't forget just to bring down your negative 2 in front, and they are all set equal to 0. Whew. Okay, we have finished our factoring process. Now we need to take each parenthesis and set it equal to 0. So I'm going to go over here. Negative 2 can never equal 0, so I'm going to take that out. That's not one of my answer choices. My second one, I'm going to set my first parenthesis, 8t plus 1 equal to 0. Subtract 1 on both sides. 8t is equal to negative 1. Divide by 8. T is equal to negative 1/8. My other option over here is t minus 3. Setting that equal to 0. I can add 3 to both sides, so my t value is also equal to 3. Again, this is a word problem, so I see a negative answer down here. I'm like, nope, I cannot time travel yet, maybe one day, but I am going to cross that one out because that's not one of my answers. So how long does it take for the discus to reach the ground? I'm going to say t is equal to 3 seconds. Don't forget your units.